Hello everybody and welcome to episode 30 of the Lottie and Albert podcast. If you are a returning viewer, very warm welcome back. Well done. I haven't been filming, you may have noticed, for a while. It's actually been, I think October 2018 was the last time I filmed a podcast, and it's now April 2020, so wow, that feels like a long time. There's no big sort of secret or reveal to why I've been away. I have actually had a baby in that time. If any of you caught the little videos I did a few months ago, the sort of day in a life, then you might have seen that. He is now 7 months old, but that wasn't really the reason I stopped filming. So I suppose I got pregnant with George December 2018. I actually stopped filming in the October, as I said. It was more because I was just so overwhelmed with all the stuff in my life, and mainly working. I'm working 4 days a week and commuting to Bristol, which is about an hour away from me. I was just finding it all so much, and something had to give, and unfortunately that was the podcast. And then, like I said, I did get pregnant, and then time and tiredness was even more surreal. And yeah, I guess that brings us up to now, really. I'm currently on maternity leave. This is real time, so we are currently in lockdown from coronavirus, but the less said about that the better. And actually probably a positive upshot of that is that although I have all 3 kids at home with me now, my husband has just been able to take Friday afternoons off, so he's looking after the kids while I have some time to work on my own projects. And I actually wasn't 100% planning on filming a podcast today, but I just thought, do you know what, they've gone out for a walk, I've probably got half an hour to 45 minutes, so I'm going to try and do it, because it's probably one of those things that if I overthink it, it wouldn't have happened. So yeah, very warm welcome back. Thank you so much if you've stuck with me in the 18 months, whatever it is, that I haven't been here. I'm really hoping, especially now I've got these Friday afternoons to work on my own stuff, that the podcast will be a regular, definitely fortnightly thing. And if I can do some other kind of videos as well, I would really like that. I'm really enjoying trying to film videos and stuff at the moment. If you followed me on Instagram, you will have seen a little bit more of me, and I've recently put up some quick videos on there, sort of on my IGTV of quick makes and things. So yeah, I'm definitely really keen to do the podcast again, so stick with me. And if you're a new viewer and you just sat through all that preamble, then you're very, very welcome. And to be honest, this will probably be the same for you as it is for everybody else, because it's been so long I've forgotten what I'm doing. You will also notice I have a new setting. I'm currently in my bedroom, and again, that's just because downstairs is AMS, and B, I just thought with the 3 kids at home, although my husband's looking after them, if you have kids you will know, mine are 6 and 4 and 7 months, so they are likely to interrupt, even more so if I was downstairs. So here we are. I'm going to be talking about finished objects, works in progress, and new things. And yeah, let's get started. If I've completely forgotten to say, if you're new, my name is Lindsey, and you can find me most places on the internet as Lottie and Albert. Gosh, I'm so rusty at this. So Instagram, I'm Lottie and Albert. Etsy, Ravelry, Facebook, I'm Lottie and Albert. So you can find me in all of those places under that name. Let's start by talking about what do I talk about first? Let's talking about finished objects. Why not? Let's do finished objects. So one of the things that I have to show you, I was thinking about wearing, but it's so warm here today in the UK, as it's April, like I said, but it's like summer at the moment, which I'm not complaining about because lockdown, but it's very warm, so it's slightly too warm for this finished object, which is a garment. It's a jumper, and it's got the most gorgeous texture. So this is a jumper from a book which was very kindly gifted to me. This is the book. It's called My Crochet Wardrobe and it's by Cassie Ward. Cassie is the Missing Yarn on Instagram, if you follow her over on there. And she launched this book, I think it was only last month, so March 2020. And she very kindly asked me if I wanted to be part of the book tour. So this is Tuva Publishing. One thing they do quite often is they have sort of month-long book tours. So every day of the month a different maker, normally on Instagram, makes something out of the book, and on their given day they share it. So it's a kind of month-long tour of the book, and it's really a nice way. Actually, I found some new makers. Sorry, I'm talking so fast. I found some new makers from being part of Cassie's book tour, so it's very enjoyable. Go check her out. And this is the jumper I've made. As you can see, it is the cover project. I'll just remind myself what it's called, my little bookmark. It is called the Bobble Top Jumper, I guess, because it's got bubbles on the top. I did make, I'll just show you the cover because this is the project. I did make a modification, which was, as you can see, mine, although I'm not wearing it, it hits me just below the hip, whereas hers, I mean, maybe she's taller, but hers is quite long line. And I didn't want mine quite as long, so I wouldn't say that this is cropped, but it's not the kind of long jumper. So all I did was, on this bottom section here, I omitted 10 rows, because it's just a kind of simple square on the back and the front. It didn't really affect the this pattern certainly in any way. I made the sleeves the same, I made the top, I made the neck, everything else the same. I just took out a little bit of length on there, and I really enjoyed making this. If you are a long time viewer, you will know I sometimes don't have the sticking power for garments and longer projects, but I'll show you a close-up of this stitch. I think this is called the griddle stitch. I don't know if it has a different name. I feel in my head that it has a different name, so if you know, let me know. But one of the things I really liked about it is it's just a very simple stitch, but it's just that bit more complex than rows of single crochet or double crochet. So it kept my interest, and then because this bobble section was coming up, that was also keeping my interest. So yeah, I really enjoyed making it. She's got some gorgeous other patterns in this book. There's a really lovely sort of lightweight summer dress. Now we are coming into the warmer months in sort of the UK and America. If anybody is looking for summer projects. What I also really liked, although this colour is not me, I really liked this basket weave stitch, and that is a cropped cardie. That's a really lovely one. And if you are a fellow lover of texture, this, what's this project called? This is the Balloon Stitch Maxi Cardigan. Look at that. I was really in love with this, but I just had a feeling it would take me too long and I wouldn't have the commitment to see the project through, given especially at the moment that I've got 3 kids at home and no help or support for childcare or school or anything. I was trying to be a bit smarter with my choices. So this is what I've made, and the yarn is this lovely number. This is the Women's Institute Aran Tweed, so you can see it's got little flecks in it, and I was a bit worried that the flecks would affect how well you can see the texture, but it really doesn't. Even on camera I can see how it's showing up. The texture's really clear, so it's a lovely yarn to work with. I'm not 100% sure if they haven't discontinued this colourway, so you can get this from Hobbycraft if you're in the UK. I think Women's Institute yarn is specific to Hobbycraft, but anyway, they've definitely got the pale pink colourway, and I think the more sort of like biscuit colourway, but they don't seem to have this mustard anymore, to the point that I actually ran out of yarn because I was trying to use stash when making this jumper, and I had to do a shout out on Instagram to see if anybody had any that they would be willing to swap or send me. So very thankfully, several people came forward, and I actually have ended up with all of this left over. So if you are in need of this, the WI Tweed Aran in the mustard colourway to finish a project, or let me know in the comments, because I would very happily send this on to somebody else to pay that kind gesture forward. So yeah, that is my first finished object, and I'm really thrilled with it. In the UK, you know, even this evening, if we were sat out in the garden, it would be cool enough for me to wear. So, and I've had some wear out of it already. I'm definitely pleased to have this in my wardrobe. And one of my kind of general, oh my goodness, had a wardrobe malfunction. One of my kind of general New Year's resolutions, I suppose, is that I want to make sure that things I make this year are like useful to me, or you know, I love a cushion, but there's only really so many cushions you can you can fill your house with, and wall hangings as well. So I definitely want to make more garments, and apparently I need to do a fixing job on my dungarees, and yeah, just generally make my crochet makes work harder for me, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my first finished object. The second finished object that I have made is actually part of a really exciting year-long project with I think it's like 25 other makers. So again, if you do have Instagram, or you've been following me on there, you will have seen this square and this project, but I'll give you a nice close-up, because although you might be able to see, this was my test square, but this is the stitch pattern that I created my square in, and this square formed I think it was square number 4 of a blanket that is actually traveling the world. I'm hoping the blanket is still doing okay given coronavirus restrictions, but when I added my square, which I think was in February, it was obviously all still going on then, and I know that the patterns have been keeping on going, so I'll show you. It was a project started by 2 of Ones, Alexi, she's on Instagram, and Etsy and Ravelry of 2 of Ones. She does really gorgeous, quite modern crochet and knit actually collections, mostly garments, but she also does homewares as well. And she works, I think, exclusively with the yarn company. Oh my gosh, I'm having a mind blank. I do know it. So the project is called My Life in Yarn, and the yarn company is Lion Brand Yarns. Okay, so pretty much exclusively with Lion Brand yarns. And so 2 of Ones and Lion Brand Yarns are this year doing this project, which is called the Traveling Afghans, and there is a knit version and there is a crochet version. And each 2 weeks a new designer designs and adds a square. They share it for free, and then the idea is that by Christmas you will have a full Afghan with 25 squares in it, 24 squares in a border, however the maths works out. So they're all made in one colour, although you can obviously make your squares in different colours and join them if you want, but the idea behind all the squares is that they demonstrate something about your story of yarn or your inspiration alongside the squares. So do go and check it out. As I said, they're all free. The best place to head, well, you can go to my blog actually, and I have a page up which has got links to all of the squares, but basically each square design appears on the designer's own website. I really hope this is making sense, because I feel that it is not. And I guess the story behind my square was just really about my love of texture in crochet, and also crochet that looks like knitting, because when I first discovered or worked on a project with this sort of herringbone stitch, the reason I wanted to make it was because I felt like it looked like the herringbone stitch in knitting, which I think is my favourite. Oh, actually, this mustard pillow is made in herringbone knit stitch. So some of the other squares that have been made, this yarn here is the Lion Brand. I think it's their wool ease and thick, although I might have got that wrong, so I'll put it on the screen. I'm not actually making the blanket in the lime brand yarn, don't tell them. I am using some yarn I had in stash, which is this Rico yarn. I think this is the Rico Essential Aran wool. Again, I'll put it on screen. I'm sorry if I'm looking really red, it's because I'm quite warm. This is the wool. And here are some of the squares that I have been making. So I have about 4 balls of this. They've all lost their ball band at one point or another, even though I've never actually made a full project in those. And this is the square that I have completed. So this was the first square. This is the square that was designed by 2 of Wands, and this is basket weave, as you can see. So actually my square and her square use very similar stitches, just in slightly different configurations is the word that's come into my head. That's creating those slightly different effects. So basket weave and herringbone. I haven't actually made my own square in my own blanket colour because who even am I? But this is what my square looks like. And then this is the square I'm currently working on. This is a really simple stitch pattern and is in fact the same stitch pattern as was used in the jumper designed by Cassie, which like I said, I think it's called the griddle stitch. And I started this one the other night because I felt very overwhelmed, as I'm sure we all do at the moment on quite a regular basis. And I just needed something. I wanted to watch mindless things on YouTube, but I also wanted to do some crochet, and I thought if I do one of the more complicated squares it was going to be too much for my brain. So I did this one because it's a nice sort of 2-stitch repetition, and that was just perfect to do whilst watching TV. So I've nearly finished that one. What else have we got in here? Oh, this is a square made by one of my favourite designers. Mine has actually come out rather large. As you can see, there's front post stitches in this one as well, which make this lovely raised heart effect. I don't know how well you can see, but I think, as is the nature when you work on projects with lots of different designers, everybody's gauge is slightly different, and she did put a gauge swatch in hers, but I obviously didn't follow it, or I think I just thought, well, I'll make the square, because by the time you've done a swatch for a square this size, you may as well have done the square. But I think even I will probably remake this one because it's just a little bit too loose. And what I've ended up doing, the project overall calls for a 6mm hook with worsted weight yarn. I'm using Aran yarn, which in theory is about the same weight, but I think this Rico Aran is particularly thin. It's probably somewhere between an Aran and a DK. So I've actually had to go down to a 5.5mm hook just to stop it looking too gappy. So I'll make this one in a 5.5 or possibly even a 5, just because I feel like her gauge is obviously a lot looser than mine is. So yeah, that's that one. And then the only other one that I have started, just thrown itself on the floor, is this one. And this has been designed by Wilma Westenberg, who is, oh, I want to say a Danish designer, but I'll double check and put that down. I'm really sorry if that's wrong. If you can see the stitch, you may recognise that this is the tulip stitch, and it's not as easily recognisable all in one colour, but that was sort of the story behind her square, because it's based on sort of the country she lives in, and it's a really pretty square. I'm not quite sure why I haven't finished the square, but there we go. So I think the blanket is now up to square 7 or maybe even square 8, so I do have a little bit of catching up to do, not least making my own, but I'm going to count that as a finished object. The pattern is up on my blog if you want to go and check it out. I'll put all the links for things like this below, and as I said, they're all free, so if you want to start now, there's no reason why you couldn't. And if you wanted to catch up, a new one, as I said, will be released every 2 weeks, and then hopefully by Christmas you'll have a completed blanket, which I think is a really lovely way to work on things. I do struggle sometimes to maintain focus on larger blanket projects and things like that, so notwithstanding the fact that I haven't kept up to date, I do think that this is a really lovely way to work on something. And I know a couple of people, or I've seen a couple of people, have actually been making 1 or 2 blankets if you have the time and the inclination, because with the timing of when all the patterns will finally be out and it'll be finished, it will be Christmas. So what a lovely thing to gift to somebody, a whole blanket. So that's sort of a finished object and a work in progress for me. If I've been vague about any of the designers or any of the yarns, I will have either caught up with my past self and put them on the screen, or I will put them in the description box, which you can find below. The only other, oh, it's my gorgeous project bag. I didn't make it, it was a project from Morais Makes, which is the magazine that I work for when I'm not on maternity leave. The other main finished object that I want to show you, obviously I've been gone for 18 months, so in theory I could have picked things from that 18 months, but maybe I'll show you a couple of those, especially some of the baby things that I've made for George. Yeah, I'll show you some of those in upcoming videos, or maybe that could be a little side video on its own, we'll see. But I've tried for this video to either just show you things that I've very recently finished, or that I'm very currently working on, rather than lapsed whips or things that I finished in the last 18 months. I hope that makes sense. So the next finished object I want to show you isn't actually crochet, so I won't spend too long talking about it, but hopefully you will still enjoy it. And it is a quilt that I have recently finished for my middle son, Charlie, who is 4. And I'll try and show you in full. It's about 60 centimetres by, 60 inches by 50 inches. And it is called the Tiny Tiles quilt. Look, my dungarees have done it again. Honestly. Fast fashion these days. This is the Tiny Tiles quilt, and this is a free pattern which you can find on the Purl Soho website. So you may be familiar with Purl Soho even if you're not a sewer, because they do lots of knitting patterns and yarny patterns too. I've just got to start a new video, so bear with me. I don't know why, but my camera will only record for 25 minutes at a time, so here we are. As I was saying, yeah, it's a free pattern on the Purl Soho website, and I think I first came across it via Pinterest. My mum is a patchwork teacher, and before I even got into crochet, this is gonna really annoy me now, I did a lot of sewing, but when I first had kids I found that it wasn't as easy to do sewing because just getting the sewing machine out is a lot more hassle, and that's kind of when I first got into crochet. I might have said that before. But yes, I have done patchwork before. I've never actually made a patchwork quilt from a pattern from start to finish before, so this is the first time I've done that. And it basically required, I think it was something like 580 of these little 2.5 inch squares, and then 120 of these bigger white squares. And so I used scraps and fabrics I had in my stash. The pattern calls for all solid colours, but I wanted to mainly use greens with a few sort of pops of orange, and so that's what I did. And then for the backing fabric I actually used an old embroidered sheet. Can you see these little bees? I wasn't sure for a while if they were bees or flies. I got this fabric from a car boot sale and I really liked it. Then the more I looked at it, the more I felt like it was a fly, and it started to gross me out. So I actually even googled a few weeks ago the anatomical differences between flies and bees to try and establish for myself, see what you think, if it was a bee or a fly. And apparently flies don't have double sets of wings, but bees do. So I'm fairly happy now that it is a bee, but I do keep having to almost like honestly tell myself I might have to go get a safety pin or something. I think it's because I keep holding stuff up against them. I keep having to remind myself that they are bees. I really enjoyed working on this. I actually started it, gosh, I think it was before I was even pregnant with George, so I don't think I've shown it on the podcast before, but if you've watched for a long time, maybe you can tell me if I have. I started it a long time ago, and then it just, I pieced a lot of the squares together, and they pretty much just sat in a drawer for ages. And then, yeah, just a few weeks ago, I was feeling very, very frazzled with being at home with the kids during lockdown, and I just needed something to work on for me. And for some reason, this is what called to me. So I had my sewing machine set up on the kitchen table, which was a little bit of a faff, for a couple of weeks. And whenever I got sort of 5 minutes, I really prioritised working on this, and it was just such a lovely distraction project. I really enjoyed finishing it, and I did share quite a bit of that process on my Instagram. Not a plug, but if you follow me on there, you might have seen, or if you did want to go and have a look, I've got it as a highlight on my stories, so you can see sort of more about the making of the quilt and also what it looks like. I'll put a picture in on the bed. So that's another finished object, and I think that's pretty much it for finished objects I have finished recently, as I'm sure you are too if you're at home with kids during lockdown. Opportunities to work on things are slightly few and far between, but that feels really satisfying to have that finished and quilted and everything and all done. So that's the Tiny Tiles quilt from Purl Soho, done and dusted. I have one other work in progress to show you, which is a kit which I've very kindly been sent from Wool and the Gang, and this is part of their summer collection, which has just launched last month, and it is another garment. Oh, that's weird, the door just opened on its own. I think it's the wind, which probably means somebody downstairs has just come in, so we'll see if I get interrupted. I just shut it. So yes, it is a garment, and I have completed one panel of it, which is this. So it doesn't look very garmenty at the moment, but this is basically quite a cropped, loose fitting, kind of, I say summer, but probably more, you know, like spring, autumn weight jumper. And just look how beautiful the stitch is. This is the arcade stitch. I think that's actually upside down to how I made it. This is how I made it, and they asked me if I wanted to do this kit. I have done a kit with them before, which I don't think I've shown on the podcast because it was last summer when I was pregnant, and it was a lightweight sort of summer cardie, which I've got so much wear out of and really enjoyed making. So I was super thrilled to do another project, especially from a summer collection. When they emailed me, there were kind of choices of what yarn I could order, and because I was ordering off the website, and actually no, I don't think it was the website, I think I was ordering off thumbnails in an email because it hadn't actually been launched, so it wasn't as clear as it is when you're ordering off their website what the colours looked like. The yarn is their Tina tape yarn, just check I've got that right, yeah, Tina tape yarn. And this is what it looks like on the ball. I've had to hide my face in order to get it to focus. Focus on the yarn. There we go. So you can see it's almost a bit like a t-shirt yarn in construction, in that it's quite flat and has hardly any stretch at all. It is, I think it's, oh, it's 10 cell. So 100% lyocell or tencel. And what I was saying about the colours was, on the email that they sent me, it was kind of like little thumbnails of the colours. So when I was thinking about the colours, I really wanted obviously something that I thought I would wear. But I didn't want to do another mustard project because I was already making this one at the time, and I do have quite a lot of mustard in my wardrobe. But I just couldn't really tell from like the colours. I ended up picking what I thought was mustard, based on the little images. Mustard and a kind of biscuit colour. And then when they arrived, these were the colours, and I was so thrilled because this is the most gorgeous sort of rust red that I'm really into at the moment. And then this one, I'm going to duck out of the way again. We'll do this. Is it focusing now? It's almost like a really soft pink or mauve, and I just thought, oh my goodness, those colours are so nice together. So I'm super thrilled with that. If you see next to the mustard, I mean, they are completely different. I don't know if it was my baby brain or, as I said, because it was on an email, but they are different colours to what I thought I'd ordered. But I'm so pleased that they are, because I'm loving how this is working up and looking. I can hear my kids coming back now, so we'll see. And yes, the sweater kit is called the Armada Sweater. So it's part of their summer collection. It uses the Tina tape yarn. This is the arcade stitch. Am I saying the right things? I did do a gauge swatch because I just think with garments they are really necessary, because I don't want to spend all that time making something for it to not even fit. And I'm glad I did, because, and this has happened to me a couple of times with the kind of bigger company kits, and I think it's just because well, I don't really know why actually, but everybody's gauge is different, isn't it? So the pattern, I think they sent with it a hook which was 6.5. I really should know that, but I don't actually have the pattern printed out because I was just sent it by email. Anyway, long story short, I ended up having to go down a hook size, and I was a little bit worried that it might affect the kind of drape of the garment, but looking at this jiggling around, I'm actually pretty happy that that's still going to have a nice drape. But the size I was making was coming out about 10 or 15 centimeters wider than it was supposed to, so it was necessary. Actually getting this out and showing you guys is making me want to work on it again. I have been working on these squares and another sort of commission project which I can't show you, but I think this evening we're going to have a barbecue soon and hopefully sit outside and the children will entertain themselves, because obviously that's what children do, and I can work on this. I'm feeling that as my evening plan. So in terms of new things, I'll show you a couple of new things. I have been quite good recently in terms of not buying yarn, and partly that's because I've had a baby and I haven't had a huge amount of time to work on projects anyway. Mostly because I have so much yarn in my stash, and a lot of it I have been sent either as part of commissions or kindly gifted as kits because people want me to share it on Instagram, or because I'm a yarn ambassador for Hobbycraft and the Knitcraft range, so anytime they have new yarns out they send me them to try out. Long story short, I have a lot of yarn and I do not need any more. I even have some really gorgeous lots, as I'm sure so many of you do, but I have so many beautiful yarns that I've bought myself, sort of like indie dyed yarns and different things that I haven't yet had the opportunity to use. So I haven't put myself on a strict no yarn ban, but the opportunities to buy it have been few and far between, and I just haven't been using it up really at all. So I've been very good in that I haven't really got any new yarn, so I don't really have any yarn to show you, but I have a fantastic section of books, and one of them I've talked to you about, which was My Crochet Wardrobe by Cassie Ward. Another one that I have been sent recently is called Cozy Crochet Blankets, and this is another book tour that I'm going to be a part of. This is by Morais Soares. So I'm not going to talk about this one today because I am actually going to be making something from this book as part of the book tour. But this is all blanket patterns, and she has got the most amazing selection in the book, if you can see, including, which I'm really keen to try, mosaic crochet. I haven't done any of that before. So although I am part of the book tour and it's all blankets, you okay? I'm just filming a video and then I'll come down, okay? You alright? Do you need anything? I'm part of the book tour, as are several other people. This book tour has actually started, so if you want to go and check it out on Instagram, then please do feel free and see what everybody else is making. I'm actually right at the end of the book tour in May, so I won't be sharing what I've made until then. But she has said to us that if we don't have the capacity to make a full blanket, we could do a little cushion or a wall hanging or something. So I think that is probably what I'll have to do. But I haven't actually done any mosaic crochet before, and I am really keen to try some. So that's another new thing. I was also sent this beautiful book by my friend Isabella of To Me, and it's a macrame book. So if that is something that you have been thinking about trying, I really recommend Isabella as a teacher. Obviously it's hard to do workshops at the moment, but I have done one of her workshops in the past. I've also worked with her on Molly Makes, and she quite often does free projects on her Instagram and on her blog, and she does a lot of natural dyeing and stuff as well. So there is a really gorgeous natural dyeing section in this book. I want to caveat as well and say that although I am quite often sent stuff, I wouldn't necessarily talk to you guys about it or show you things if I didn't actually really rate it myself. So I'm not just showing you because I've been sent it. I just filled my memory card up, so I'm not 100% sure where I got to, but I was raving about Isabella's macrame book. She's got some really beautiful projects in there. There's stuff suitable for beginners because she takes it right back to basics, and there's also some more sort of intensive and detailed projects as well. So another new thing that I am loving is this. I have actually started making a little plant hanger from the book, so maybe next time I will have that to show you as a finished object. And then finally, two books I bought myself. They haven't been gifted. I have spent my own cold hard money on these. Are two sewing books. They are both garment books, and they are both by Tilly and the Buttons. So Tilly Waynes of Tilly and the Buttons. If any of you have ever watched The Great British Sewing Bee, I know not everybody who watches is from Britain, England, UK, what do we say? But she was a contestant on it, I don't know, like about 7, 8 years ago. I don't know how long ago. But since then she's basically launched her own very successful brand, and it's all about sort of make it yourself patterns. And then this one is the newer book, which is the Make It Simple book. So I really recommend that one. If anybody is interested, I would show you more, but I think I'm running out of space on my memory card. So if I make anything from the book, then maybe I can talk about it in more detail. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are all the new things that I've acquired very recently. As I say, lots of books, but I think maybe I feel like it's okay to have books because so thank you so much if you've made it to the end. I'm sorry if it's been a very fast, very rambly video, but it's so nice to be back and to have made another podcast finally, and I'm just really keen to make some more. So do stay tuned, and in 2 weeks time I'll be coming at you with another one. So yeah, do let me know if you've enjoyed the video, or leave me a comment if you have any questions. And yeah, I can't even remember how I used to sign these videos off, but just thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Do check out the comments below, and do give me a like or a subscribe. I think that's what I'm supposed to say. If you have enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more from me, you can put the little bell alert on, and that will let you know when I have made another video. So yeah, so nice to see you all again, and I will see you soon. Bye!